Hello, my name's Taylin, registered dietitian from Tacoma. Today we are preparing beets. Our recipe are roasted beet salads with a chocolate vinaigrette. So our first ingredient, the main star of the show, are red beets. Now, red beets are red on the outside, the inside, and we've got red stems. Note that the greens are edible, so while we are removing them from this recipe, save them as there are many other ways to use your beet greens. For the beets, we are going to be using a few household ingredients. Vegetable oil, salt, pepper. For the salad toppings, we'll be using goat cheese, walnuts, shallot, and if you have cocoa nibs, you can top your salad with cocoa nibs. Our lettuce is going to be whichever you choose. I'm using spinach today. Our salad dressing is very unique. It will be using a less common ingredient, and that's chocolate. We have red wine vinegar, extra virgin olive oil, unsweetened cocoa powder, sugar, salt, and pepper. I've got my oven preheating to 400 degrees as we are going to roast our beets for 45 minutes. First step though is to wash them. Now since I'm going to be using the greens in another recipe, I'm going to give them a nice rinse and then chop those greens off and put the beet back in the sink because we're going to peel them. The messiest part about beets is that once you start peeling them or chopping them, the bright colored pigmentation gets everywhere. So your hands are likely going to get red from the beets, and your sink will, and your countertop will. So this hack is going to minimize the mess. We're going to peel them under running water. Use cool running water, as the hot water will result in more bleeding of the beet. I'm going to use a potato peeler to peel my beets. Some recipes say that you can roast the vegetable first and then peel them, but this takes a lot longer. When you roast the vegetable with its skin on, it's harder for the vegetable to cook, so you need to roast it for about 20 minutes longer. So I rather peel in the sink and then roast. So you can see that my beet is nice and peeled, and my mess is very minimal compared to if I were to do this on the countertop. So I'm gonna go ahead and peel the rest of my beets. Voila, we've got 3 large peeled beets, minimal mess. You can toss the scrappings in your compost. Step number 3 is to chop your beets. You're gonna want a sharp knife because beets are pretty tough. I'm chopping them into 1-inch cubes, and that's just to expedite the cooking process. To prevent them from rolling away from you like mine just did, you can chop a flat surface, set that down on your cutting board, another flat surface, and there you have it. Less rolling. I'm going to transfer them to a baking sheet and toss them with some oil, salt, and pepper. If you see that you have any larger beet pieces, larger than bite size, I would cut those down. That should be good. For best cleanup, line your baking sheet with foil. Little drizzle of vegetable oil. I'm using a grapeseed oil. You can use avocado oil. Anything that's equipped for high heat cooking will be fine. 2 pinches of salt. This is going to equal about 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Same amount of cracked pepper, about 1/4 teaspoon. Spread them around evenly so that they roast well. Toss them in the oven. Now it's time for the dressing. I've got a mason jar, but you can make your dressing in a bowl if you'd like. 1/4 cup of red wine vinegar. The red wine vinegar makes it tangy. It doesn't have as much sugar as some other vinegars, so we are gonna add sugar to this particular recipe. And we're going to use olive oil. Same amount, 1/4 cup. Vinaigrettes often have a 1-to-1 ratio of oil to vinegar. I've got some premium cocoa. It's the natural Dutch blend cocoa. We'll be using a teaspoon of this. I'd imagine if you had a chocolate balsamic, that might work really well for this recipe. A teaspoon of sugar, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and some fresh cracked black pepper. Now we give it a whisk. If you have fresh tarragon, that would be a lovely addition to our dressing. Our salad is going to have some shallots, and that also would be a lovely addition to this dressing. I'm gonna taste it to make sure it is sweet enough. It is sweet enough, and the cocoa actually does come through nicely. I like it. I'm not gonna mess with it. Time to assemble our salad. I'm gonna chop off the end of my shallot so that I can peel it. Our shallot's peeled. I'm going to cut it in very thin strips. You could also use a red onion for this. All right, and now I'm gonna cut off the nub, and I've got ribbons of shallot. We'll dress our salad with about a tablespoon of our vinaigrette. And I like to dress the leaves first so that everything's evenly coated and I can get a bite of the dressing on every single piece of lettuce. Add a little bit of my shallots here. Add a couple teaspoons of our goat cheese. And then a handful of some walnuts. I'm just gonna crunch this with my fingers so that they're easier to eat. Finally, the star of the show, the roasted beets. They've already been cooked and cooled on our baking tray. I'm just gonna add them to the top of our salad. We can see how they caramelized and they're brown, almost black on parts of the beets. If you cut them really small, you might get a crunchy one. There you have it, folks. Roasted beet salad with a chocolate vinaigrette. Enjoy.